Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jared, and welcome back to Mini Histories. Outside of all the college work I've been doing, I decided to pick video games back up as a fun little hobby, and I decided to replay one of my favorites from the past couple years, Red Dead Redemption 2. If you play video games and are anything like me, you'll have to see two things: an amazing story and some fun historical background. These Red Dead games have got me interested in the entire Wild West era, and I decided to make a video about it as a whole. I won't be going too in-depth or anything like that, but instead going over the gist of the era and mentioning some cool and exciting stuff that happened. So here we go. To start, the era of cowboys didn't last that long. Similar to the golden age of piracy in the early 1700s, the golden age of rootin', tootin', gun shootin' varmints only lasted about a few decades in the late 1800s, with the vast majority of cowboys and gangs phasing out in the late 1890s. But how did the Western era start? Well, at the end of the American Civil War in 1865, Manifest Destiny became a pivotal aspect of American culture. America finally was able to industrialize further due to there no longer being a nationwide conflict. Slavery ended, which caused the need for machinery to replace the incredibly racist infrastructure of the South. Despite the fact that slavery still exists today in the form of life-binding contracts and incarcerated black people, but that's a totally different conversation all in itself, so back to the topic at hand. Plus, new territories that were completely untamed and unclaimed began to arise in the West, such as Idaho, Utah, California, and all other soon-to-be Western states. For those who may not know what Manifest Destiny is, it's the idea to spread the American dream across the vast continent now open to the United States in the 1800s, and it later would result in things like the Gold Rush and the Cowboy era. Cowboys weren't all just law-evading rabble-rousers, but instead took the idea of the American dream wholeheartedly and wanted to make a name for themselves any way they could. They wanted to express the American idea of freedom, including freedom from the law in many ways. Many Western men didn't believe in the idea of Uncle Sam keeping control of all this territory, so they decided to go and get some of their own way. There were many people who just worked as cattlemen for farmers and often would sneak and sell cattle for profit themselves, and then there were those individuals who would kill and plunder and all other horrible things. People like Billy the Kid and other famous gunslingers chose to support different conflicts even, and do what they needed to create a name and a fortune. As many of those old Western films pushed, many of these cowpokes wanted a name for themselves, a sense of accomplishment for achieving notoriety outside of American society standards. Many people wanted to be known for being a crazy outlaw who robbed trains and banks and could kill 3 men blindfolded. But unlike these westerns, there was nothing civil or honorable about the job. We all know those Mexican standoff scenes in video games and movies. Each man takes 10 paces and stare into each other's eyes with the sexual tension between them just waiting to burst before one of them pulls out the revolver and shoots the other with their dead eye. This never happened. Any and all gunfights in the Wild West were chaotic, not honorable in any way, with bullets flying everywhere, possibly even hitting innocent bystanders, and always ended in several people dead. However, this didn't mean that the idea of honorable gunfights didn't exist in this time period any less than it does today. Many lawmen such as Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickock had a super famous reputation for being a wizard with a gun, when in actuality the likelihood of them hitting anyone with a revolver or a repeater was about as likely as someone shotgunning their shit into a toilet from 15 feet away. Everything we know about lawmen and gunslingers and outlaws are borderline myths due to the fact that there was no real infrastructure in the West yet, besides a few railroads. Messages only got around via word of mouth or town newspapers, which had no regulation, so all they would do is stretch the truth a little further. Of course, there was a bunch of cool stuff that totally happened in this Western period. Wild Bill Hickock had a reputation for being a gunslinger, although the total number of people he killed in his life with a gun probably ran close to 4 to 6, and nothing like the legends you would hear in these old Western films, of guys shooting 20 men in less than a second and other shit like that. What I thought was cool about him was the fact that he died in a classic cowboy fashion by getting shot in a poker game. Other people like Billy the Kid also had a crazy life, having been arrested multiple times only to escape literally every instance he was in jail. He was even arrested by the DA of New Mexico and was sent to a federal prison only to break out again. Wyatt Earp, the famed lawman of Tombstone, Arizona, also managed to take down the famous McLaury and Clanton brothers unscathed in what is now known today as the gunfight of the OK Corral. In short, much of the Wild West era is known to us, but with countless variations and stories from all sorts of accords. Yes, many of these outlaws existed, but not how you thought. Yeah, there were many gunfights, but nothing like the ones you saw in the movies. Yes, people like Billy the Kid and Buffalo Bill were real people, but had a reputation that far outstretched the reality of their actions. Yes, gangs like the Doolin Dalton Gang and the Wild Bunch existed, but for a super short period of time, and often ended in all of them dying or going to jail and being hung. Sure, the Wild West period is super cool, not only for the idea of cowboys and outlaws, but also for what was happening in America at the time, as well as the industrialization and the shaping and forming of what this country would become today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.